Another job that I need to do for the airplane is to make what they call bullets, or what we call bullets. Drift pin is another term you could use for it. Anyway, they're pins that you use to run through two different fittings to get them to line up so you can put the proper size bolt through them. And I've made one of those before for the floats, for putting the floats on and getting those parts to line up. We want to make one here now that'll go through the wings. The ones I made for the floats with a number 6 bolt, an AN 6 bolt, which is a 3/8 bolt. The ones for the wings are AN 5 bolts, and that's a 5/16 bolt. I've got some old bolts here now. These are old ones I dug out of the pile I took out of the old airframe, or I think there's some of them might have even come out of the wing. And what I'm doing is I'm turning the head down to the shaft diameter, the 5/16 diameter, and then I'll take the threaded end and turn the taper on that. So I've made my first one. I'm going to make several more of them. So you can run this tapered end in there. You'll get the holes partially lined up enough to get this tapered end through there, and then as you drive this pin through, it'll pull the pieces together, and then you can follow that up with a bolt. I've been using that little 6-inch Craftsman 109 lathe, and I got bits and stuff for it. So I got to looking through there, and I've got some 3/8 steel bits. I got a bunch of them out actually, but I took one of them and put it on the grinder and ground the shape on here for cutting, and it didn't do a very good job on it. My grinding stone is out of shape, it's out of whack, and I was looking for my wheel dresser and I couldn't find it, so I did the best I could with what I had on there. And I used this already for this one, for the head on it, and it worked okay. It's sharp enough, it's just not, and the angles are okay, it's just not quite what I want. And I'm not used to doing these bigger bits. I need to get used to it because I've ordered some 1/2-inch bits here that I'm going to use, but I might have to get a bigger grinder. I just have a little 6-inch grinder. Anyway, this is cutting. It's not too bad. I'm going to try that again, and I got to turn the speed up. I tried it down at 70 RPM, and I'm feeding it by hand. Anyway, I just want to take this head down to get it to the same diameter as the shank, and then we'll turn it around. This is the other thing that I've never used before. I've got a collet chuck, and I'm using the collets on here, and I couldn't get the threads started in the chuck here to start with, and I was kind of frustrated with it. But once I got the threads started on the collet in the chuck, then it tightened up, and it's actually working really good. I didn't try miking it out or anything else. I'm just doing it. This is not a precision job. It doesn't have to be to the 10th or anything like that. These things are just bullets, just a part. Anyway, that's what we're doing. We'll get this set up, and I think I'll go 200 RPM this time and give it a try. And I got some Viper's Venom from Grizzly when I was down there, some black cutting fluid. These bolts are AN bolts, and they're high strength bolts. They're 170 psi steel, so they're not your average soft hardware store bolt. They're not even grade 5 bolts. I think they're equivalent to grade 8 bolts, so it's pretty tough steel. I didn't set the taper up to do the taper or anything on it. I'm just with the compound, I'm just doing it by hand and just eyeballing it. Like I said, there's nothing precision about this, but it's all a learning experience for me. So. Far enough. I don't know how much I'm taking off even, but I did put it in far enough that it's not an interrupted cut on those flats. Now that's not a very big bolt. That's only set a number 5 bolt. Almost got that down now. Go in until it just touches off on the shank and back up clear cut coming back. Okay, I'm going to take the file and clean that up and chamfer that end, and maybe I'll go ahead and turn the speed up and go ahead and sand that down on this side and polish it up, and then I'll flip it around end for end and do the threads. These bolts are perfectly serviceable bolts as far as that goes. There's nothing wrong with them. Some of them got a little bit of rust on them and stuff, but I usually change them out when they get a little bit of rust on them and when the CAD plating goes on them. These are CAD plated bolts, and once that CAD plating goes on them, okay, then they get rusty real easy and they start swelling up and sticking in the part. I'd rather change out a $5 bolt than a $500 or a $5,000 part. This up and did a straight taper on it, but it doesn't really make any difference. I'll take the file on that now and smooth that out a little bit, smooth that shape out a little bit, and then polish it all up, and that'll be a good go. Got 3 bullets made. My last one went a lot nicer than the first ones. I started to get my timing down a little better and my cuts a little better. But they're all serviceable. There's a number 5 bolt, and you just push these in the hole to line up different things and put the bolt behind it and drive it right through there, push it right through. So, and the bullets come out the other side and the bolt is all installed. I got some number 6 bolts down there and maybe a number 7. I'll go ahead and make some out of those. I've got a number 6 someplace, but I've misplaced it now. Well, as long as I'm in the mood here, I might as well make some more. But I changed the collets, and I'm going to do some number 6s now. Number 6s are 3/8, so I took the 5/16 collet out of there, put a 3/8 inch collet in, and I've got my first bolt set up there to trim the head down to it, to the shank diameter. That's good. Kind of smooth that transition out a little bit for the threaded area into the shank, so it's a little bit smoother. It's got kind of a sharp shoulder right there now. There's number 6 bullet, so I got a couple more of those to do. I got 4 of each, the 4s and the 6s. Started getting a little bolder here on the 6s after I did the first one. Hand feeding like I did the others. I started using the power feed to do the taper on there, and then hand feeding the cross slide out. It'll take me a little bit to get used to that. I got better as I got along. This first one here I didn't do very good, and I kind of like these ones that I hand did. They have kind of that bullet shape, the more rounded shape rather than the straighter taper. But these will all work for what they're for. I thought I had a 7 here too, but I don't really need a 7. I don't ever use a 7 for anything much on this airplane. There's a couple of bolts on there that are 7s, but most of them are 3s and 4s, and the 5s go in the wing hinge point where the wing attaches to the fuselage, so that'll help get those lined up. I can move the wing up and down and just slide these in there until I get them in. And then the 6s, those are mostly on the floats, and those can be kind of a bear to line up sometimes. So I had some number 4 bolts down there, some 1/4-inch bolts down there too that I put in the scrap bin, and I may bring a couple of those up to do some number 4s just because